Now I know I'm a little bit late to the party on the Li-Ning CJ1, however, the build quality of these things is just so good. I had to get a review out there just to kind of show you what's under the hood of these and just to kind of show what happens when the build quality is so high level. You know, you get a really great functioning sneaker. And I'm a little more excited for this video than most because today, on top of the new universal rating system, I'm also debuting 2 new tests to really objectify both jump height and speed. I have a third one coming down the pipe I'm still working out the kinks on. However, make sure you stay tuned throughout the video for those brand new tests, as well as my new universal rating system at the end. I am still working out how I'm gonna do the universal rating system. I'm thinking I'll start interspersing it in between the sections of the video so it flows a little easier, but for right now, I'm just kind of keeping it separate just so I kind of get the flow of how I like to deliver it to you. So let's get into it. Now, besides the donut colorway on these, which really speaks to me being the father of a toddler who spends a lot of time in Dunkin' Donuts on the weekends, as I'm sure you can tell, the uppers on these have such a great containment, but also just a really comfortable feeling just based on strategic padding, as well as just the overall design construction of the weave of these uppers. Now, if you look at this weave here under the microscope, as you can see, it is actually a braided woven mesh. Now, it's got 2 layers. One, it's got the weave going all the way through it, and then it's got the braiding all the way around, but then underneath of it is another meshing layer. So there's relatively little paneling on these uppers. However, they are just so stout and containing. I mean, it's unreal. Side-to-side stability in these is just some of the best I have tried. And then to top that off, when you're locking it down under the lace line and the vamp and the tongue of the shoe, you have a giant pad right here in the anterior ankle, but even more importantly, you have a pad here right in the heel counter of the shoe, which goes up really high on your Achilles tendon. And then on the sides is another really thick pad here, right here on the mid top of the ankle counter. So when you tie the shoe down, the shoe really compresses all the way around your ankle, giving you so much biofeedback in these shoes. Remember, a mid or a high top is not gonna stop an ankle sprain, but with all that padding kind of compressing around you, it is gonna give you a ton of sensation and so much more information that your brain can take because your ankle is touching all these pads in different areas. So when you're moving in different directions or when your weight is shifting differently, you're gonna get so much more data just because your foot is coming in contact with these different parts of the shoe. One thing I don't like is the outrigger lace eyelets. They probably are strong enough because of the braided mesh, but they actually might start wearing down a shoelace. So I mean, I guess you can like wax them a little bit or maybe just put something in there to kind of decrease the friction, but then you wouldn't get as good of a lockdown. So that's really my only complaint about the uppers. You actually do get some premium materials kind of around here, kind of in just little areas here in the paneling here and up in the ankle. But if you look at it on the upper durability test, the Dremel 10 seconds high grit sandpaper, I mean, it makes a mess, the Dremel of the uppers. However, it doesn't get through the uppers. So even though it kind of looks like an Einstein's haircut right here, it still didn't get through. So I would say, especially if you're dragging on an indoor hardwood rubberized court, you're gonna be just fine. And on outdoor courts, you might look like you're solving for relativity or something up here, but honestly, the integrity of the uppers would still be fine. But getting into the midsole teardown, it actually took me a while to find out what light foam was, which is the purple foam in here. Now there's boom foam here in the forefoot, which is that thermoplastic Pebex foam. And I've been seeing that a lot on Li-Ning and Way of Wade shoes. Kind of they put that in the forefoot for a little more forgiveness, which I really do like. However, the light foam in the back, but I found out it's actually an olefin copolymer foam, which is really similar to flow foam in the Under Armour Curry line. And it was really funny to me. I always wondered why no one else had thought to use that compound of foam because it is such an intuitive combination of rubbers, silicones, plastics in there, which make it just this super elastic type plastic foam, gives so much energy return, but also stays really light, kind of like the Curry Flow line. Except in this, I'm sure it doesn't have the abrasion resistance that the Curry line does. And when you feel it, it does kind of feel like flow foam under there, really bouncy, really springy, really lively. And when you put it on underfoot, it does feel super elastic underfoot, just gives you a ton of snap. But you do have this straight carbon fiber shank underneath of it to give the shoe a little bit more of that rigid beam type effect. So when you're really trying to push off hard, the shoe will give you a lot of reverb, but also you get that comfort of that nice molded olefin copolymer up there, which just feels so good underfoot. Now that being said, that brings me to my all new bounce and elasticity test. Now this is done in a plastic tube with a 1-inch metal ball bearing that is dropped from a consistent height, hits the heel of the shoe as well as the forefoot of the shoe. And in the heel, the light foam got 34 centimeters of bounce height versus on the boom foam here in the forefoot, which got 39 centimeters of bounce height. Now that's compared to the Curry Flow 10, which is all that Li-Ning copolymer foam, which got 37 centimeters across the board. It's not like the Curry line where they allow so many degrees of freedom so you can get that really crazy ankle bend in there, whereas with these, they are more constricting in the uppers. However, even with that, you're still getting a ton of pop on these. Just showing the engineering here underneath of your foot is just really good if you want to get up off the ground. And also just give a little bit of context, the Dawn issue 4, which is all light strike foam, got 31 centimeters, both heel and forefoot. Just shows you these two foams definitely give a little more bounce than most. But by far my favorite part of the CJ1 is the outsole tread, and you actually need the microscope again to see why. Now first I'll just show, it is a snowflake pattern here in the forefoot, which I think is pretty interesting. You do get a little bit of herringbone, a little bit of delta pattern on there. So it is nice for pivoting, but also for easy transition from step to step. It is a full length tread pattern, which I love because it gives you just so much grip. And then the heel, you get a radial pattern around there. So you really are kind of getting a lot of different shapes on this, which do give you a lot of traction in different directions. However, like I said, on the microscope, if you look on each thread and line of this stamped rubber, there is also a grid pattern stamped into that rubber. So on every little outcropping of rubber, there's also a secondary grid on that, which gives you even more traction. So that's why these shoes, even with really narrow treads, they're still giving you so much pivoting and so much gripping power. This is one of the most well-engineered outsoles I've ever seen, just because you're getting grip on two different layers. And for speed, I'm actually implementing two new tests. One I'm still working at the kinks on. I'm trying to figure out the software for my accelerometer. But the second one is bounce to weight ratio, which means the amount of launch you get off of a shoe versus its weight. And for simplicity, I'm just calling it the speed ratio. And on the CJ1, they got a speed ratio of 2.14. Now that is compared to the Curry Flow 10, which has a speed ratio of 2.59. It just shows you the Curry Flow 10 for how light it is, just gets up and going so fast, versus on the CJ1 where it has a ton of balance, but also a little bit of weight. But remember, you also have to take into account the outsole and how much grip it has on corners. That's where the accelerometer test is gonna come into. So make sure you're watching for the next reviews, because that accelerometer test is gonna be an on-court test. And the data that I've been getting back so far just on the tests of it have been really interesting. If you do look at the outsole durability test, the Dremel 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, I mean, not even a millimeter of damage on these, almost a millimeter of damage. But remember, that grid is less than a millimeter. So if you're wearing it down on an outdoor court, you're gonna lose that grid. So if you wanna keep that crazy pivoting power and the crazy grip, you probably wanna keep these indoors. And getting into the fit of the CJ1, honestly, the entry into these was a lot easier than I thought it was gonna be, even with my ankle brace on the left side right now. So a narrow foot, I might wanna go down a half size just to get the maximum cushion and padding you can get, kind of that one-to-one feel. Medium and a 2E, I think you just go true to size 4E. I would just go up one half size on these. They are built pretty generously. If you are somebody with heel pain though, ball of foot pain, tendonitis, anything like that, these two foams in there are so resilient, plus the carbon fiber underneath of it, they are going to hold your foot up. And I noticed with me, I'm still having a little bit of problems with shock sometimes. I've been playing for a while, and I noticed the foam on this was so much more forgiving on my foot than others out there. I really didn't feel any pain in these. And I usually do not comment on insoles, guys don't really see the reason. However, on these, you actually do get a little bit of a heel pad on there. So you actually are getting a little bit of a crash pad. And so, you know, I would say, maybe for the first 3 to 4 weeks on these, you are gonna get a little bit of an extra padding on the heel. Once this wears down, it doesn't really matter. But it is nice that they thought to at least put something in here to give you a little bit more cushion. And so that brings me to the universal rating of the CJ1. Remember, 8 categories, 5 points each, total out of 40. Now for containment, I'm giving them a 4 out of 5. Honestly, they would be a 5 out of 5. The only thing I don't like, because they could start fraying your shoelaces over time. And for bounce, I'm also giving them a 4 out of 5, just because, yeah, the forefoot is a 5 out of 5 for sure. The light foam is really good. However, considering the weight of the shoe and just kind of how maximalist the uppers are, they're not as easy to get up off the ground as some other shoes are. But for shock absorption, I am giving them an easy 5 out of 5. These were some of the most forgiving shoes I've ever put on in the heel, as well as the forefoot plus bottom loaded shank. Just gives you the ultimate in shock absorption in the shoe. And for support, also pretty easy 5 out of 5. The light foam, like I said, with that Li-Ning copolymer, just holds itself up so well. Carbon fiber shank on the bottom, giving that so much midsole midsole shielding plus the boom foam in the forefoot, you really can't get a much more sportive shoe, especially, I didn't even mention, in the uppers as well. And for speed, I'm giving them a 3 out of 5. In initial speed, I give them a 4 out of 5. However, that gridding pattern, if you take it at all on an outdoor court or once it starts to wear down, it really starts to go down to a 3 out of 5 because that really elite grip starts to go away from it because the weight of the shoe starts to come in and become more of a factor as the rubber starts losing performance. And number 6, durability. I really went back and forth on this, but I am going to give it a 3 out of 5 and not a 4 because when you first take them out of the box, the performance of these is just so elite that when that gridding pattern on the rubber starts to wear down, you really start to lose the best parts of the shoe. Plus, you really don't have a ton of drag guarding here in the forefoot, so even though you do have reinforced threads up there, so it's more of a performance durability versus an overall kind of manufacturing durability. And for comfort, I think this is an easy 4 out of 5. You're in the midsole foam, one of the most comfortable, like I said. The lockdown on these and the padding is really good. Like I said, it's just a little more of a maximalist shoe, a little bit of a heavier shoe. That's really the only thing that takes it down a point. And in terms of raw playability, honestly, if these aren't a 5 out of 5, I don't know what is. These things just have so many good attributes that you can bring to a basketball court. Honestly, they could have made this shoe for Zion Williamson too. They're a great shoe for a big man, but also someone that does have more shifty and nimble footwork, or also someone that's looking for a shoe for a little more pop off the ground, a little bit more pivoting power, a little bit more of an ankle breaker mover, but also someone that wants the protection of a shoe that's made for a bigger player. So anywhere from a center, power forward, even up to a point or shooting guard, you can use these. I think if you're a point or shooting guard, you probably have to get used to these shoes just because the uppers are a little more substantial. But I do think someone that's playing under the hoop that needs a little more nimble footwork as well, or just someone that needs a ton of stopping power, these are just going to be awesome, especially for someone that's rebounding a lot. You know, these shoes will just keep bouncing and bouncing and bouncing over and over again, and you won't lose performance during that. So I'd say for a rebounding shoe, probably one of the best out there right now. But I would say they do play every position pretty well. You just have to know how to extract that performance out of them before you get kind of their maximum efficiency, maximum playability. And just as a reminder, the universal rating system is going to be available on the 2023 basketball guide, which is a digital download I have for purchase down below. Like I said in a previous video, I am offering a discount currently for it because I haven't gotten the URS on every single shoe yet. So until I do, I am offering a 20% discount on that. Now the bounce and bounce to weight ratio, that speed ratio is going to be on it, as well as the accelerometer test will be on it. Like I said, once I actually get them done and get them all loaded up into there. So like I said, for now, there's going to be a discount on that, so make sure you check that out if you want to pre-order it now. And with all these new tests I'm bringing forward, I'd love to know your opinions on them. You know, do you find them more helpful, more objective? You know, do you think they kind of take out a little more of the operator error versus the old test, the shuttle and the jump height test? I would just love to know your opinions down below. And if you want to see their sibling to the Li-Ning CJ1, the Li-Ning JB1, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam. I'll see you in the next one.